Be surprised by being
Right on time?
Yeah.
Wow.
You're
Well,
breaking
punctuality
your
is my middle name.
but just not for this show. Welcome everybody. Welcome to Niagara this morning, and it is Gung Hoi Fat Choi. Happy Chinese New Year.
Was that Chinese New Year or something?
Yeah, yep, okay. That's exactly it. Yeah, Chinese New Year today, February 17th.
Well,
so
okay.
The year of the horse.
Happy New Year to our Chinese residents.
Yeah,
of Chinese.
It's the year of the horse. So, are you going to whip the horse into shape this year?
I don't know. I think I was born on the year of the horse, but I'm not sure. But anyway, congratulations and a happy Chinese New Year to all those who follow those customs in our city, and I hope it means we're going to get a celebratory free Chinese meal from Far East. Which is only a walk away from me, so I'll have to put that in there. You know, this is Chinese New Year, and it's customary on Chinese New Year to give your neighbors some food. That's me.
There you go.
Actually, I still call it the far out. You know, I was in there on the line one time, and someone said, "Oh," I said, "Well," I said to someone, "Oh, I phoned the far out at 2:00," and everybody laughed because anyone who knows anyone around my age group, we always call it the far out. I don't know why we did, but
Far East restaurant,
the Far East very successful business from the very beginning.
It's been there forever and a day, yeah.
And you get good food there. Sun Sui was the best in town, although I don't even know. Like it was in a building that was condemned, so the building came down, and Sun Sui went somewhere, but not anywhere. I even asked the review if they knew where the people went who ran the Sun Sui, but that was the best Chinese food of all because it was like real Chinese food. It's like the stuff I had when I was in China.
Yeah,
like that was really good. The stuff we have here is kind of North American Chinese food, and it's good. It's good, but you get the real stuff. It's really nice. They had a ginger fish recipe with ginger fish, and they had where you get whole fish and they had ginger baked in ginger or something like that. It tastes delicious. Everything. They had dumplings. Oh man, they had a great menu.
Well, one of those challenges I found with Chinese food is that the Chinese food that's done in England is not the same as the Chinese food that's done in Canada. And I know they're not, neither of them are the same as the Chinese food done in China.
Well, most of our Chinese food, I think, is sort of based on then Cantonese type food, although it's not like that.
Well,
I think a Chinese American knew that making Chinese food the way that China made it probably wouldn't fly in the U.S., so they came up with something in between.
Yeah,
and that worked out very well. But Chinese people coming here from China wouldn't recognize a lot of our dishes, I'm sure.
Yeah, and the Chinese food that came to England initially came out of Hong Kong, so was entirely different than some of those that came out of Peking, for example.
Well, it would be Hong Kong food would be basically Cantonese because it's down the river from Canton, so it would be very much influenced. But remember, in China, when I was in China, every area, the north, the middle, the south, all had different foods.
Oh yeah.
South and stuff used a lot of rice. The north was a lot of wheat.
It's like you go to India. There's every region has their own different speciality. So what we see here in the West is not the same.
No,
And Ricky's
Rick
saying he's
says he's
getting
getting hungry.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there you go. Thick fog. Wow. Yeah, I'm just saying it coming up, and there's a bit fog out there. Yeah, that's for sure.
Oh, I
I
usually
still,
wake up in a fog anyway.
there's still 15 layers of snow on the car next to me on the van out the window.
Oh,
Anyway.
wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so getting on with the show, Regional Council makes its final budget adjustments to arrive at a 6.3% increase. And yes, Mr. Gale did manage to get 2.8 million out of his savings on the last tranche of cuts.
Well, congratulations, Bob. I think Bob's a businessman. He also was on the police board. I think he has a lot of practical sense, and so I think if you look at it that way, but you have to be very concerned because he started dipping into the reserve, so you cannot do that.
Yeah.
That's a temporary Band-Aid fix. You start dipping into reserve, you're going to have other problems later on. It's robbing Peter to pay Paul kind of thing. I see it that way. And yeah, it might hold back tax increases a little bit for now, but it's still a 6.3 increase, and it's only down marginally from a 6.9.
It's a little bit higher than I thought. Bob Gale was going to get to about 5 overall, but 6.3 is a little bit higher than I thought he would get to. But I suppose it's it's better than it has been the last couple of years.
Yeah, I just don't see the budget really being reduced by so much. But we did, like I said before, we found like Paul says it's possible to get down to zero, and I didn't really think that was possible. But there is Windsor, Vaughan, Tecumseh, they all did that. They got their budget right down to zero increases, and they did it. Go ahead.
Yeah. Notwithstanding that, I didn't think it was possible for us to get down to zero.
Yeah, but either did any of the other cities. Now, what they did to do that is what we have to zero in on. Like, one of the things they did is increase the amount of services. One of the things that Bob Gale did here, or not Bob Gale, but influenced by Bob Gale in the region here, was to reduce the amount of grants given to industry from 2 million down to 1 million. Now, of course, that has a consequence because later on we'll find there's an article here about industry complaining about residential encroachment and the other way around. So here you're trying to attract industry, but you reduce the amount of funding for industry. So you see, you're always
but I
robbing
think the
Peter to pay
argument,
Paul, basically. What do you want? Do you want to stimulate industry or don't you? So what they did is they did a kind of half and half. They took the $2 million they were going to do for stimulating industry and reduced it down to 1 million, but put a hard cap on it. So that is a compromise.
Yeah. And the thing about that is, for a long time, Bob Gale has been saying that we give too much money to industry. That's not to say that we, for example, that we shouldn't give grants to places like Innovate Niagara, which are helping people set up new businesses, but that generally overall, established businesses should be able to pay for what they use.
Yeah. Now, the reason why we couldn't really cut anything more because there are certain things that were verboten. Homeless, you can't reduce spending on homeless. There's a couple of things here that they would not accept as budget reductions. And as soon as I can find them here, I'll mention them. but I can't find it, obviously. But anyway, homeless was one of them. Yeah, here it is. Compromise after promising not to touch long-term care, homeless, and social services.
Yeah.
So when you those are tough things to cut, even at the best of times. But if you can't cut them, there's only so far you can go, because those are expensive things. How do you approach the homeless thing? There is just that's just part of our society now, and it's all over the world. The other day when I was driving home, there's another guy going through the zombie routine on the side of the road. He's hiring a kite, and obviously under the influence of fentanyl.
Yeah.
So there's lots of it out there, and our society's changed because we have it's like we have a permanent shanty town, but it actually is tent cities and things of that kind. We can't seem to reverse that, and yet that's a very costly thing. If you go to Summer Street, you'll see cops there. I mean, that's money right there. They're at Summer Street, and there's cops, and then there's you'll find that the fire department's there, or the paramedics are there, and if the people there were healthy and had homes, a lot of this wouldn't be happening. And so you got to think to yourself, if you can't cut into the homeless budget, where can you? What about the social services and long-term care? You can't cut them. What does that leave then?
Yeah. The thing is, we're gonna say anyway. And one of the things is that Ricky feels that the NRPS will appeal the cut.
Yeah, well, another article here, which is in tandem with this, the reason why I put two articles together there, and the other one was municipalities complaining about the high cost of policing. The high cost of policing are cutting at the budgets all over the place. Our own budget, I think 50% of the regional's budget is policing.
Yeah.
It is a huge amount of the cost. It's not going down. And so different mayors, even though they're given the strong mayor's powers, are not permitted to cut into police budgets. And that's what Ford said. So if you can't cut into the police budget, where are you going to save money? That's another thing. Yeah. And that budget keeps growing all the time. What are we going to do? We cannot see the police budget going down. We can't see the cost of policing going down, not much. What are the alternatives? Has anyone ever thought of hiring private security companies?
Oh, no.
For doing some of the more mundane things? You could get a private security company for around the casino, maybe. You can get a private, you can have private securities doing tickets, that kind of thing, traffic tickets. Do you really need a fully a cop to give tickets, at speed traps and things like that kind?
I'm wondering whether a percentage of this, how much of a percentage of this budget is taken up by the province, right? And how much of it, okay, so there's a couple of questions there. Is we've got two layers of policing in typically, although actually we've got multiple layers of policing. We've got in the average town, we've got typically the OPP, and we've got potentially local in places like Niagara, Toronto, etc., in the bigger areas. Would there be a saving by not having a Niagara Regional Police? I don't know the answer to that one. I'm just asking the question. Is there a provincial responsibility for a certain amount of the police budget?
Well, we find that just about every community in Canada uses the RCMP. Here, Ontario and
Yeah.
Quebec are different. They have their own provincial police forces, but just about everywhere else has a provincial police force. And then we have our different regional and municipal police forces. Is it more cost effective if we get rid of the regional ones and just blend it all in and have Ontario police
Yeah,
force?
exactly.
Is that better? I kind of think that there's probably a lot of things the police do that you can section off, that the
Well,
police can be
for
there
example,
for the real bad stuff, and then a lot of people can go, like, even to a traffic accident, let's say. uh, you have to have the ability to sort of cordon off the area to direct traffic away, but you're not going to be shot, or you don't have to worry about criminals in and around a situation like that. You may get away with being able to use less expensive forces, um, less expensive employees to deal with that kind of thing.
yeah.
And I see a lot of comments here. What are they all about? They keep coming up and down. I can't read them.
Just about Mike saying, have you seen private security scams going on? That's exactly my concern about using private security.
They're
Right.
all owned by East Indians and hire them only.
I'm
I'm not so sure about that.
I'm not being about where they come from. There's plenty of private security have been abusing the system over the years.
Well, look, there's been a lot of military type of private securities, like BlackRock and a bunch of others. I mean, those are the extreme ones, but you can get something in between that might be less expensive to do. Like the casino does. Like the Ontario government doesn't run the casino; it hires somebody to run the casino.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe we can hire somebody to take care of our policing, or at least parts of it. Now, this is not to take away from the police guys, but quite often you just see them parked and at a speed trap, or at a corner where people tend to run the stop sign or something, come to crawling. And I mean, is that really a good use for
A lot of that is about.
listen to me here. Is it really uh, getting worth out of your money, having a highly trained officer, right, who is trained in many different things to do just traffic stops?
Well, actually, they're trained exactly for traffic stops, and let's raise that ugly head about what happens here is police have traffic stop quotas, right? Now they will deny
Not
it.
officially. Not officially.
They
Never
will
officially.
deny it, but everybody knows that come the 25th, if the policeman hasn't gotten their quota, they're out there in force on, in certain places that they know they can catch people.
Well, I've known some cops, and they all say the same thing. There is no official, but you will have a talking to if your tickets are below a certain level. And
Yeah.
the fact of the matter is, no police officer needs to really. It's not a difficult threshold to get certain amount of tickets, and that's why they get mad at them.
Okay. Gary says he's for increase in NRP budget, but only if they pass a test on the character and rights of freedom.
Charter and rights of freedoms. That would be good. That would be very good.
Freedom, yeah.
We find we don't often find police knowing what they're doing. I once witnessed this. Now, the guy didn't know that my son, a cop come along, and the cop told my kid that he had to do this and they had to do that. And my kid said, no. And he's only like 11 or 12. No, I don't have to do that. He says, yes, you do. You have to, because I'm a police officer. He didn't realize that me in the park was his father. It was but I could hear everything. And the cop was wrong. The cop was absolutely wrong. Everything he said that my son should do or have to do was wrong. They had some trouble at the local corner store and there's kids there, and he's just kind of driving around trying to get information. And the cop says, "You got to you gotta answer all my questions like I told you because I'm a police officer and all that." My son says, "No, I don't know anything, and I'm not going to answer any questions." So my son was right, but it made the cop mad.
Yeah.
But my son wasn't involved and didn't know the people who were involved, so the cop was just fishing. But there you go. There's a cop that didn't even know the law because I confronted him later. No, he doesn't. He doesn't have to. And the guy told me, he says, "You teach your son to cooperate with the police." Well, he was, but the way you did it was wrong. Rano, you don't do that.
It's about bedside.
You don't threaten a kid or put the fear of God in them. Saying, if you don't answer my questions, you're in trouble.
But what really needs to be taught there in that regard is bedside manner, isn't it?
I suppose, but look, this is didn't even know but they do know what they don't have to do. When we had a junkie in the park put needles there, we had to try to find all the different needles in the park. So we phoned the police and we said, "Look, there's a junkie here, and a bunch of her needles are here but we can't find them. They're in the place where the kids play, right here at the bottom of the slide, but we can't find them. So we want you to help us find some." "Oh, that's not what we do. We don't do that." "Well, can you advise us what to do?" "No, we don't do that. But there's needles here, and they could be a safety problem for kids, if they get jabbed with the needles that the junkie was in." Because my kids had witnessed it, that the junkie was injecting herself and then breaking the needle off, and that little needle was in the sand, and the syringe was there too, but she knocked the needle off the syringe. So so they weren't going to do anything about it. They went to look for the junkie, but they weren't going to do anything about that or even advise us what to do.
Okay, so there's a question here. Mayors are worried because they're facing municipalities all over the country, all over the province are facing double-digit increases in policing costs, and some communities seeking 11% or more. And they're already struggling with escalating homelessness, rising emergency services, and infrastructure deficits. And so on top of this, the police budget is really concerning to a lot of mayors. But I think what we've been talking about there has been that if we run to a different way of management, would we have a more effective police force? If we had if we got rid of all of our local police forces and regionalized,
it's almost impossible. Like the police or like the fire department in this town have a kind of a aura about them that's untouchable. Of course, you want really good police. Of course, you want all that to happen. But has anyone done a real review of how of what the police do and how? And can you take away some of their responsibilities? And do they have to have those? Look, the SUVs they're driving around in. Yeah, do all of them have to have that?
No.
Is there any other way that you can get police officers around? Like I said before, when I was, I've seen all kinds of police actions, and a lot of it's done in small and ordinary, everyday cars. I saw police on, I think it's 401, and they were using a very small 6-cylinder kind of car. Back in those days, it was small, and they were using that for the policing. Not the big, huge things, cars. Well, so do we have to have all those kind of cars?
Yeah, and in fact, actually, policing on things like, if you're policing at events, you get dropped off by a van, not you don't have your own car.
What are you talking about?
Well, if you were policing an event, let's say, you would be dropped off by a minibus or something.
I don't follow.
Well, there's no need for every individual cop to have a car.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm agreeing with you. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. So, but there's all kinds of. Do they need that kind of car? If they're sitting looking at a corner that people run the stop sign or something, do they really need a huge, totally massive SUV? Could they have a smaller
No,
police car? You know,
they
that's
don't
one
need
thing.
that.
You
Yeah.
do need, well, and they seem to be using the budget. They seem to be avoiding the issue of police cams, which I think is essential
Yeah.
nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so oh well, the budget says we can't have police cams. Well, I think they're avoiding that. Anyway, I don't know, how do you get an independent. So basically, what's happened here is Doug Ford says, even though you got the strong mayor powers, you can't touch the police budget. You know,
Yeah.
we want you to be able to budget things and everything, and we gave you these police strong mayor's powers, but well, guess what? This one's untouchable. So
Mhm.
how do you then manage your increased security? We have to be safe. We have to have good cops and everything, but they're paid extraordinarily well. They have excellent and superb benefits and pension funds. Is there any way to reduce that somehow? Not reduce their pension funds or their medical, but to kind of find ways in which we don't have to use cops in all the situations they're used in.
Yeah.
Now,
Okay,
this is
Gary.
nothing new. I read an article about this years ago about how you can take a lot of policing and assign it to. You can have, some countries have different tiered police, right? So you have the highest level of police, and they're the ones that go off to murders and accidents and all this. But there's a second level of policing that takes care of the mundane things like traffic control,
Yeah.
that kind of.
Yeah. Well, you're not
They're
going to
paid.
put a murder detective on traffic policing, are you? You've
No,
investigated. You've invested, a lot of money on him becoming a murder cop. You're not going to put him on traffic patrol.
no. I
Yeah.
mean, well,
Okay. Gary asked an important question here. Does anybody think it's okay for a sergeant who said he would love to run somebody over with a mental health issues? He's saying that there's to someone in training. This is how new cops are learning, and that's out of order.
oh yeah, well, whoever said that's an idiot.
Yeah,
I can see somebody saying that out of frustration.
I get it. Yes, out
It
of
was taken,
frustration.
if it was in a situation where we knew that nobody was really serious about what they said, you know, like,
Yeah,
I like to kill that guy. He's driving me nuts. I
yeah,
kill
yeah,
him, like,
exactly.
that kind
And
of thing.
and just because you said kill him, he's driving me nuts, doesn't mean that if he died, that you were the one to blame for it.
Yeah, I know. I blame you. Oh, I heard this guy's full of bullets that came out of your gun. Oh, I let that to Peter. Look, so the thing is here is, yeah, you're going to have professional. We find a lot of that's being put up in the States right now. A lot of their training type of videos are online now, and there are some of them are atrocious.
Yeah,
They are really jackbooted Nazi type of things, and of course they're talking about their homeless in the worst possible ways, how they get rid of them, and all this, that kind of thing. But let's put it this: one of the things that is pushing policing up is the homeless situation. So when we have the regional budget, it can't touch the homeless and it can't touch the police. What's it going to touch?
yeah.
And I think
Great
the two
question.
together, homeless and police, like the homeless situation exacerbates what the police are need to do. You know,
Yeah.
maybe there's somebody we could use that isn't the police for a lot of the homeless issues, because that's taken up a lot of their time. It's very frustrating for them. These are irresolvable conflicts. Basically, somebody's just freaking out or whatever, and there's nothing that resolves them. What are you gonna do? Put them in jail for the night, maybe, but that they're back on the street tomorrow. You know.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. Cuba fuel crisis and refinery blaze. Cuba's basically currently, because Venezuela crude was diverted, it means that Cuba's hardly getting any oil right now, and on top of that, they just had an oil refinery blaze over the weekend.
I really don't understand why the United States has to make the people of Cuba suffer. So they want the people of Cuba to suffer. And they think that if the people of Cuba suffer, they'll revolt against their government and then change the government out. Like that. Well, they tried that. They did that in Iran. Look what happened. So the people got frustrated at their government and went out on the streets to protest. Thousands of them got killed. Do you want that to happen in Cuba? And why do you want to make the people suffer? Is there not a better way? If you have issues to do with Cuba, why don't you bring them up? And you can shut off the oil and control the oil and use that as a leverage, but why shut it off? Why not use it as a leverage point? Because when you shut it off, what you're going to do is hurt the Cuban people, right? They don't have fuel. They don't have ways and means of getting to the doctor now. They have no ways and means of getting their kids to school and transport goods like foodstuffs from one point to the other. Why do you want to do that? That is the wrong approach. Now, even if the Cuban government has changed, everyone in Cuba will remember that the United States is the one that made them suffer. The United States is the one that put the sanctions on them, and they're the ones that wanted them to suffer.
But Donald Trump is basically saying all they need to do is make a call to make a deal.
I'm not so sure what kind of deal it is. When Obama was in, he did a different approach. He went to Cuba and said, okay, let's thaw relations. Let's get things back on track. Let's try to start to normalize, which they did. U.S. farmers were selling more stuff to Cuba. All of a sudden, more people were going to Cuba.
And Cuban cigars were available.
He needs an enemy. And so he reverses all that.
Yeah.
You know, so
Cuban cigars were available in America again, you know?
Well,
under Obama.
Sooner or later, Cuba would have to depend on the United States if the United States followed the plan that Obama had, because sooner or later they would be locked into trade deals, and their economy would be in sync with the rest of North America, and you would never have to worry about them thereafter because their interests were your interests.
Yeah.
But what Trump wants to do is have a victory, and I will decry this. I will decry Rubio too. These are Cuban people he's sticking his thumb down on. Like, this is not the government. The government will eat. The government will have a car to go where it wants to go.
Yeah.
The average person will have nothing.
Yeah.
And that will be remembered. That will always be remembered, that the Americans wanted the Cubans to suffer in hopes to get a regime change.
And
I think that's
the last half century has proven that Cuba is resistant to that regime change, albeit that they had that they had kind of 50 changes in 50 years in the prior half century.
Well, they are tough. They're tougher than tough. So the United States supported the Batista government prior to the revolution. So they supported a very corrupt regime that was brutal and was, not democratic at all. Of course, you're going to get a revolution, and you got a revolution, and you got a leftist revolution. And so the United States got really mad, angry, because now they couldn't control Cuba. Yeah. So they kept coming after it, putting sanctions on it, the Bay of Pigs, one thing after another, and the Cubans kept resisting. They kept beating. A tiny little country like Cuba kept besting the United States. It's right in their backyard, 90 miles away from Florida. And that always infuriated the United States. But when Obama comes along and says, okay, well, let's kind of thaw relations. Let's do what we can to kind of get it together here. Then Trump comes along and isolates them again. I don't know. It's morally corrupt, I think. What you want to do is allow fuel to go there, but start making some kind of deals in other ways. You don't have to bring a gun to somebody's head. You don't have to make the people suffer. Why do you have to make the people suffer?
Well, in fact, actually, if you want to take over Cuba, what you need to do is make the people help the people, but make the government suffer.
Well, yeah, they make and look, the reality check here is that the Cuban government has to know that it has to get into the modern world. It can no longer play these little games. But part of the reason why they play the games the way they do is because they're under sanctions and stuff like that. If they weren't under sanctions, then you could talk to them. You could make deals. You could make real deals if they're not under sanctions. And look, because sooner or later, Cuba knows in order to expand its economy, it's going to have to get into the modern world, and it will have to deal with it. But it is forced to be. It's forced to be against that kind of thing because of the sanctions and things. It cannot move towards a normalization while it has sanctions on it.
Yeah.
Where's the people with a mind here in the U.S. or other Western governments basically saying, look, how can we get to a place, right, where we can normalize relationships and your economy and our economy can benefit from cooperation? What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
Because obviously Cuba has no other choice. But if you put sanctions on them, then they have to defend themselves as best they can. Obama's method was much better than Trump's, and Trump just makes an enemy out of people. Why doesn't Trump say, "Look, here, I'm going to give you all the oil you need right now, but there's going to be a cost to it, right? You owe us X amount of money, and for this, we need our people to come in to develop this part of your industry or whatever else." They can make a deal. But in this case, they just bring a shotgun and say, we're gonna starve all your people. All your people are going to starve. None of them are going to be able to go to school. They're not going to be able to heat their houses. And we're going to keep doing that until you do what we tell you to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And look what happened in Iraq. In Iran. I mean, did it really work? No. Right? The people did revolt, and thousands of them got killed. Did it happen in Iraq? When they did that same thing in Iraq before they toppled the government there, what did it do when they put the sanctions on?
Yeah,
right. It made all the people in power rich because they're the ones that ran the black market. Same thing in Yugoslavia when they put the sanctions on against Serbia. Who got rich? It was the people in power, and they got rich through the black market.
Yeah. All right. And of course, with any fuel crisis, catching it on fire, having a fire at the depot doesn't exactly help anybody, does it?
Yeah, you gotta wonder if that was an accident or not. Because as soon as
Oh, it
when
wasn't
your
even going there.
when one of your refineries goes up in flames, you got at a time where that's the first thing that comes to mind. Was this sabotage? Probably not, but still, it comes to mind.
I was prepared to believe that, give the benefit of the doubt that it was not sabotage, but you're right to ask the question.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Niagara Falls wants industry protected against residential encroachment. And the point here is we've had a lot of this. What tends to happen in our area is that we've got traditional industrial areas whereby the cities allow typically traditional industrial areas where the city allows residents to be within half a mile of it, then within a quarter of a mile of it, and then the residents start saying, well, they're making a noise in that industrial place. Well, who was there first? They were. Tough luck.
Well, yeah, that's a thing that's been happening over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And if we remember the Lionite was right there at Stanley and Thorlstone Road. It was a abrasives company, and they kind of pretty much ran it out of town because you got so much complaints about that, and they kept coming up and saying, "Well, we offer a lot of jobs." And Mayor Thompson at the time, it's dirty, it's smelly, it shouldn't be here, kind of thing. Meanwhile, so they ran it out of town, and that was a lot of jobs that went with it. Good paying
and high paying jobs as well.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, good pensions, good everything.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not Lionite could have sustained itself for much longer, I don't know. But they turned their back on a place like that, and I think we have to be very wary of doing that kind of thing again. What happens not only with industry but also with agriculture? So you have all this pressure to build houses in the country, and they build the houses, and then what happens is everybody bums out because the farmers were up at 4 o'clock in the morning plowing their fields, and they're up spraying, and they spray their crops, and everybody thinks, well, that's poison. Well, we shouldn't have that. And the farmer says, well, we were here first. What are you doing here? And all the residents go running to city council and say, stop this, stop this, stop this. This is environmentally bad. We shouldn't have this. Meanwhile, the farmer says, I was here a long time ago. I've been doing this for a long time. It was your fault for buying a house close to the farm. Yeah. And these houses should never have been built there. There should have been some sort of buffer zone in and around them. But city developers.
Well, as you said, the buffer zones have been shrinking, haven't they? It used to be half a mile away, and then it's a quarter of a mile away.
Yeah.
And then it's a few hundred meters, there's a few hundred meters.
So this is a reversal. Usually in times past, there was a lot of people against industry and farms that were too close to the city, and they usually got the ear of counselors. But now the opposite is happening. The counselors are saying, hey, wait a minute now. We're getting all this complaint about industry, and we need that industry. Those are jobs. Those are places. Yeah. These are traditional places. So they're trying to enlist the provincial government to help them with this. Now, I don't know why this is such a problem. To tell you the truth, when I read it, I thought, well, here's all these counselors, regional and municipal, and they can obviously see there's a factory there. Look at, let's say, Hudson Steel, right? Look at Hudson Steel at Kayla Road there, and across the street from it is a junker, is a auto parts junker, right? The junkyard.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So they existed fine out there until people started moving up there and started building houses, and then they complain about Hudson Steel making noise at night. Well, I worked there in the summertime one time as a student. Yeah, you got shifts going 20, depending on what kind of orders they have in. They'll have 3 shifts going 24 hours. Yeah. And they're going to be making noise, and they're going to be lifting stuff and grinding stuff, and in the summertime they're going to have the doors wide open because it's brutally hot. Well, what do you think? So now you have a house close by, and
Well,
you can hear
and the house is there.
Well, what do you think was going to happen?
Yeah, and the house is less than 100 meters from the fence of Hodgson Steel, right?
Well, I don't know, but you have neighbors, you have housing in and around there. It's a little bit too close. You can hear what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And
again,
my question was, when you bought that house, what did you expect to happen?
Yeah. And of course, Hodgson Steel has been there for years. Hodgson Steel has been, giving good jobs to our local economy for a long time. And it's part and parcel of that area, right?
Yeah. And out that way, they had the junkyards too. There are less of them now than there used to be, but that was a good place for them. But now you have residents going up and they have to drive by a junkyard and they bum out. Well, the junkyard was there before. What do you expect to happen?
Yeah.
So basically, so I can't understand myself here that the city councilors and everybody, when they look at a residential plan come up, can't they look and see, well, there's a factory there.
Yeah.
Or there's a farm there. Do you know that the farmer's going to get his tractor?
We don't need the province to protect it. Yeah, we don't need the province to protect it. What we should have is city councillors that go out, do what Laurie Lococo does, goes out and inspects the site, looks at it, and looks at it and says, that could be a problem.
Yeah, that is a very simple thing. Very simple thing is just go out there and see. But you should be on the plans anyway, and the city planners should be bringing this up.
Yeah.
What are the city planners there for?
Absolutely.
The city planners say, well, there's a farm there. There's a fruit farm there, and they spray their crops. And if you put a house close to it, you might get some overspray, and you might have to put up with a bunch of temporary farmers, like a lot of people from offshore, and being around all the time, making noise and working, and you're looking for this nice residential property, and you bought it right beside a farm or a factory, and what do you think is going to happen? And the realtor too. I don't know. They're not going to tell you this factory makes a lot of money. Noise at night, are they?
No.
You're going to see if you go by there at night, you're going to see welding arc going on.
Mm-hmm. Well, in some respects, you know what they say, whether you're buying a new property or an old property, you need to be camping in the backyard of that property for a month before you buy it.
Well, yeah, I think it's just being knowledgeable is the thing.
Yeah.
And we find this especially with people moving out to the country. I've ran into a couple of people who said the same thing. They wanted to buy a nice home in the country, and when they get there, what they didn't realize is that farmers get up early in the morning to do their work. All right, 7 days a week they have to, and sometimes, sometimes they spray and there's overspraying, and they're worried about that. What was that comment about Obama there?
Yeah, the heading to jail one. I don't believe that.
That's dumb. It's dumb.
Yeah.
It's no more like Trump and Clinton and all of Obama's not associated with Epstein, at least not so far. Not much anyway.
He is mentioned in the Epstein files, but then again, a lot of the mentions that I've seen have been more about business dealings than anything else.
Yeah, he didn't go to Jeffrey's place in Florida. He didn't go to
But again,
Island.
Again, a lot of those are about a lot of those are things that were mentioned in the Epstein. A lot of the mentions in the Epstein files. I've gone through half a dozen documents for most of the people that I search. Most of the information, even with Trump, was about their business dealings. They recommended buying this sort of share, or they bought that type of share, or something.
Well, I think Howard Lutnick is the biggest. Howard Lutnick gets on TV and he tells everybody he met. He moved into a house beside Epstein, went over there once, was so totally repulsed, would never go back there ever again. That was like in 2005. Oh,
Yeah.
I hated the guy. My wife and I were totally repulsed, and we'll never see this guy again. We'll never talk to him ever again. And then the emails come out, and he's all over the place. He's doing business deals with Epstein. He's gone down to Epstein Island and introduced his kids to Epstein on Epstein Isle. This is the guy that so repulsed him that he wouldn't go near him, hangs out with him with other people, takes his kids down there. The men that his wife and him were so totally repulsed by, they introduced their kids to him. Like, the kind of hypocrisy that's going on there, it's just kind of unbelievable.
Yeah.
But, Lutnick's kind of creepy anyway. But
again, just to finish off this thing about the city council, it's actually at the end of the day, it's the city councillors that need to do their homework, and actually they're the ones who need to be saying, no, this is an industrial area, and draw a half-mile ring around it so there is plenty of room for noise, for the issues, to protect against those issues.
So Niagara Falls seeks the title of it. Niagara Falls seeks protection for industry against encroaching residential complaints. The mayor says, well, we have upped our residentials, but we need protection for our industry. And it still bothers me to think that they have to go to Doug Ford. And he says the councilors unanimously approved sending a letter to Doug Ford and relevant provincial ministries requesting more support that would allow pre-existing manufacturing properties to operate in a way that would avoid conflict with newer nearby neighborhoods. So I still don't understand why they have to do that when they have the controls themselves, it seems to me. Now, what am I missing here? If they have already have the control to control where industry goes or not, maybe they don't. Maybe a developer can buy a piece of property, and despite the fact of where it is, they can develop it. Even if and maybe the ombudsman can overturn them, saying there's no real rule that says you can't build beside a farm or a factory. So to me, I'm a little bit confused why they have to go to the province for this. Have you got any insights on that?
No, I don't think that. I think the reason that they're looking, for the province is because they're being too lazy themselves to go and do it. That's part of the role of the city councillor. We expect them to actually, we expect them to validate these places. And the build more homes kind of legislation that the province is putting in is kind of forcing a hand to be kind of develop and build a lot quicker, although that doesn't seem to make a damn bit of difference around the Niagara region. How many condo buildings have we got in the whole of the Niagara region that have been proposed and never built? It's staggering how many we've got. Probably 20 or 30 of them now in the whole region that have not been built.
Well, the fact is there is a lot more housing has been built, and it says here by Ruth and Newestag, we have to protect industry's rights. At the same time, we're encouraging residential development if industry is pre-established in the area. And it still seems to me the concerns about separate residential development proposals near industrial properties, Palfinger and Oleo Energies Incorporated, feature prominent during council meetings in January. So I still don't understand why do they need the Ontario government support on this? Why
Yeah.
is it something that they find themselves they don't have complete power over this, or they're
No,
looking for the province's support for pre-established industrial areas? And what about buffer zones? And it mentions that too. This kind of buffer zone seems to be reducing.
well,
So then what you have,
what would make it
high-end housing. Let's say, for instance, when up in Bevan Heights, right, the high-end homes there. Well, guess what? The blasting was happening in the quarry, right?
sorry.
And so they bummed out about the blasting in the quarry, but the quarry was there before they were.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the point being is that I think maybe the one area in which the the province needs to get involved is making sure that buffer zones are actually legislated. That's my only thought.
Yeah, I suppose it isn't really clear to me. It says Niagara Industrial Association, who said residential encroachment near manufacturing sites has been an issue across the region. But this is not the first time I've heard about this on and off for many years. So what industrial operators are worried about is they see residential areas coming closer and closer to their facilities and know that they will find this NIMBY thing start to happen. Yeah, it's nice to have industry, but not here in my neighborhood, even though you were here before I was.
Yeah.
We don't want it. It makes noise, particularly the higher end housing. If you put a lot of high end housing in, so you know what I mean, that they will complain.
Well, if you were put that higher end housing and I were buying that higher end housing and I'm looking at it and I'm saying, well, there's a factory over there, I'm going to be moving elsewhere.
Yeah, look, these are jobs too. Like, and of course, it's also a topic for the environmental ministry. Now we see the problem that's happening down on Park Street right now. Paul Lemire said that he smells oil and gas kind of fumes coming out of that Park Street thing. We have been told by Gary Wilkins and
that's exactly what Mike Cushman's talking about, right?
Right. Yeah, and that's the other one, Mike Cushman.
Yeah, that isn't going away, right?
Those guys have been telling us that over and over again. No, they did not clean it up.
Yeah,
and they showed us videos of tar
coming. And putting a bunch of gravel on top of it for 5 years doesn't clean it up either.
Well, I don't know how it got the green light to go. They said, "Oh, all this superficial tar stuff," and then they start digging and they get this odious odor. Where's that from? Is there any like? I don't see it in the newspaper. Do you? Like,
no, it's
who's investigating this? Or who's investigating this?
I think they basically they've been worn down by attrition.
I think I'll go down there and sniff myself. I might be able to get high.
Yeah.
So yeah, here you go. Can we really trust the environmental? I mean, I don't know. Anyway, get back at it. And I see this as far as they don't include agricultural here, but I'll tell you this, that agricultural, a lot of farms were under a lot of problems because residential started moving into close to farms and farms were, and then they start complaining about the farms, spraying the fruit, digging up stuff early in the morning. And the farmers are going, look, I told you not to put a housing development here. So when the city council comes down on the farmers, because they got all these people from all these residences hammering on the door saying, "Oh, you got to stop that noise. You got to stop that spraying. It's not good. It's not healthy for us." And the farmer says, I was here before you were, and I told you not to put the residential area in there, and you did. Now you're blaming me."
Yeah. And the farmers, when you think about it, the farmers are up at 4 o'clock in the morning. It's crack of dawn in the middle of summer, doing whatever they need to do for the farm.
Yeah, and I used to drive through the farmlands from here to Nanticoke because I worked in Nanticoke a lot.
Yeah.
And you see the farmers out there late at night, way late at night, harvesting their crops with the big lights on their combines and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really, really early in the morning. So there's certain times where they got to work almost like 24/7, 7 days a week.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So if you have a residential area around there, they're not going to be too happy, are you? Because those tractors are waking you up on Sunday morning.
Yeah.
When you expected to sleep in.
Yeah. So not an ideal place to go live.
Yeah, and obviously the same thing within industrial areas. If you keep encroaching on them, but like I said before, what I don't really understand about this article, I should probably try to drill down a little bit more on it, is why the city and the mayors and the councilors have to go to the provincial government to help protect industrial land.
Yeah. Yeah, the only reason I would say is that if you were going to ask them, you'd be asking them a specific question, which is to legalize buffer zones.
Well, there's got to be a practical reason why they are going to the province. Probably because they can't stop it somehow here.
For example, you were talking about. Legally. You see, for example, you were talking about Hodgson Steel earlier on. If, for example, what they did is they intended to make a residential area on the edge of the Hodgson Steel property, wouldn't it be a wise thing to put a park in between Hodgson Steel and the residential area?
Yeah, because the developers bought the land and he doesn't want to put a park in there. He wants to put houses and he gets money out of it. Once he sold them, and the people then move in and hear the noise from the industry and hear the trucks coming in and the welding arcs going off all night and the cranes lifting and dropping things. And then they think to themselves, hey, this is unhealthy. It's an unhealthy environment. So that the house has got to close down and move away. And the house says, well, I've been there forever. You're the big dummy that bought the property, But they're not really that dumb. They haven't been forewarned, right? Yeah. Nobody's told them, look, there's a factory there that works all night sometimes. I don't know what the activity is in Hodgson Steel now, but I do remember the complaints about it many years ago. I
don't believe they work nights right now, but still.
I don't even know how much work they do anymore, but they're still there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But you say, what are you going to do? Are you going to encroach upon General Motors and then bum out because General Motors have got people coming and going all night long, and you happen to build your house close to it?
Yeah. All right. I think we kind of have to call it a day because I know you've done your stuff, haven't you? You did your bingo tickets yesterday.
Yeah, I did them yesterday.
Yeah.
Bingo's down. Less people are we're getting less revenues. I get sort of high and then low revenues coming from them. We changed our format. We might have to change it back. I don't know if the people really like it that much, but anyway, we're still making money, and I'll just put out there. Thanks everybody who does play Qantas TV Bingo. You're helping your community out. Thanks for that, because that money you buy the storekeeper does not get any of the money for selling the tickets or the cards.
It doesn't?
No. There's no money. So when you go into a store and you buy a Qantas TV Bingo card, that store owner does not make any money. He does it as a service to us.
Okay.
Right.
Well, that's interesting to hear because I always assumed that they made a small percentage,
Nothing.
Yeah. Okay.
They don't make anything. They do it as a service to us. And pretty much every Avondale store has them and other stores as well. There's a bunch of stores that want them. Anyway, so the one closest to you would be that convenience store on Bridge Street there. one in Victoria too. But other than, so it doesn't necessarily have to be an Avondale store. But anyway, so that money comes and helps. Anyway, the last thing I like to do is I remind everybody about Gaza every time. And it's not in our news anymore, but they killed another 10 people a couple days ago. They dropped some bombs on them. It's very, the reasons are less and less. They're just dropping bombs. It is like killing people. I don't know what it is. You got a bunch of people, and every time they go after somebody they think they're going after, they take 10 lives with them. They used to say, oh, well, it's a 2-to-1 ratio. That's acceptable. 2 civilians for every one bad guy. That's the kind of ratio they had in Fallujah. If the Americans could get away with having a 2-to-1 ratio in Fallujah, killing 2 civilians for every one bad guy they get, well, that's not the case. Is it really? Seriously?
Yeah.
72,000 people killed, most of them, like 25,000 of them children, and 100,000 of kids being maimed, not to mention all the innocent people. It's not. And I just don't want that to get off the mind, because it is an insane failure by the West. And of course, the West don't want to talk about it anymore because they've failed, and they can't let Israel get away with what they've done.
Right.
And what they're doing in the West Bank too. Everybody's looking the other way, and big pronouncements. Oh, you shouldn't do that. At least they're not doing the 3-monkey thing, which they always did. The states particularly, see nothing, hear nothing, speak nothing. But they're at least seeing it and speaking about it, but they're not doing much about it. Anyway, without further ado, I bid you adieu. Pray for peace, everyone.
Yep. Bye.